What's going on, guys? You haven't misread the title, even though I put the wrong panel on the screen, so our visualization isn't quite there, but you haven't misread it. We are talking PGA Golf Open Championship this week. It's a good week to debut kind of some diversity, some difference with me and Gov. Donnie hasn't quite got in to golf yet, so we left Donnie off for this one as of now, but I do think, just like football, once we kind of debut this product and show him all of the intricacies of golf, I think he'll become a fan, because I wasn't a huge fan of golf at his age. I wasn't a huge fan of golf 5 years ago. But what really did it for me was, one, it's like the most economical sport in terms of DraftKings humanly possible. You start on Thursday, you get a full Thursday to Sunday sweat. And it literally, I love diversity. I love difference. I love that you can have a short player, a tall player. You could have a bomber type, guy that just swings for the fences, a Patrick Mahomes type, and then there is still places for that Drew Brees type of quarterback as well in terms of a golfer. So like, there are different approaches, different shots, different, and then what I find most interesting outside of the globalization of golf is just all the different betting markets you can bet in golf. And so when you add up all of that, it just makes one of the best daily fantasy sports to me.
Like it's the one sport where the weekend aspect of it like actually works.
Yeah.
And like it gives you multiple days. It gives, like you said, it gives you multiple days. You can bet head-to-heads against guys most weekends. You can bet over-under rounds. You can bet totals. You can bet just like bogey par over. Like you can bet that on like their straight round total. You can bet it on bogey free. You like how do they get to that 600? Do they do it without a bogey? Like there's so many things to bet. You're right. You can make pick'ems. You can make straight up money lines. You can make all of them. And make a betting card with guys you think are going to. You can make top 20 bets. Yeah. You can make the cut bets. Like, yeah, there's just so much.
And what's really fascinating about it is the fact that these golfers get paired together in fours usually, and so like when you have a matchup, and that matchup is exactly correlated with the future with the featured group that you're watching, with the featured group. It only it just marries together so well. Like I would almost correlate it to this, Gov. It's almost like you can be a good cook or you can be like a chef, right? But like everybody has a summer barbecue, whether you're good at cooking or not. So like to me, that's golf. Golf is just so welcoming. There's so many different ways to enjoy it. You can be a hardcore fan. You can be a casual fan. It has a lot of crossover. This might seem weird, but it has a lot of crossover to MMA to me. It's like, or fighting or boxing in general, if that's what you're into. It's like, you kind of know what's happening here. This guy's going to punch this guy, right? Well, in golf, this guy's going to pick up a stick and he's going to hit it towards the flag, right? So, like, there's not a whole lot of, there's some nuance, of course, but that comes with any sport that you really engulf yourself into. But like it's very easy to pick up and watch and play or even have in the background. And I do think that led itself to golf success as a whole. It's just an easy watch sport. It really is.
Yeah, and as someone who's like played it, like I can legitimately like I played like let's say 26 or 27 holes total. So, like, I played a round of golf. I played a set of 9 with someone else.
Mm-hmm.
But I've been to the driving range. I've definitely played at plenty of golf courses. It's a really fun game if you actually learn to play it. It's the most. What's the word? It's as a math guy, we look at projections playing this.
Most gamblers are, by the way.
Yeah. golf, when you're playing it, has the highest standard deviation of enjoyment.
Mm-hmm.
You either absolutely hate it at times, or it's one of the greatest and most relaxing experiences. Because, like, sometimes it's like, if you look at it from certain perspectives, if everything's going right and you're not upsetting yourself with your shot and fucking shit up, you're walking out in a nice open area, maybe with a golf cart, with a drink, shooting the shit with your buddies. Like, that sounds like an amazing day. You're essentially walking through the woods that has these big open patches that you can drive through and shit.
Well,
And you're playing a little game with your buddies along the way. That sounds amazing. Now, when you start shanking stuff off into the woods and on the cart path, that's a different game.
well, that's what I'm saying, Gov. It's almost like it merges the two together very well. It's a very complex game, but it's also very simple to understand. And they might sound like they're the same thing or very counterintuitive, but like, you know how many rules there are in football? Because me and you usually do football content, or Donnie's so much into basketball. Sometimes we forget all of the fundamental baselines you have to know to enjoy those sports. Golf has its like nuances with the type of grass they play on, with the weather changes, with the temperament, when it comes to that, obviously. But in a way, it's like you're outside, everyone can enjoy the environment. Like, even my dad, who doesn't like sports, could turn on golf and be like, oh, it's sunny out, or there's a crocodile in the water, or like there's just something relaxing about it, right? And like, a lot of these other sports are just wrapped up in rules and like stoppages so much, replays and stuff like that.
Yeah, no. The only thing you ever have to stop for in replay is like, do I have to find my ball?
Right. Now, there are rules of physics.
Can I get a drop if I'm really like, there's no way.
Right.
Like, that's the only time you ever need a stoppage, is like when the player extremely fucks up, and he knows he extremely fucked up, and everyone in the stand knows he's extremely fucked up, then that's the only time you ever have to stop play. So it's like, it's perfect. It's like, you only have to stop play when everyone knows you should have to stop and do something and figure this out.
So this is a good merger, because we are trying to keep this show a bit more condensed, just to see if you guys like it, because me and Gov don't mind doing this every Wednesday if it becomes a thing. But the one thing we do see is like pace of play in golf is almost like a skill set or a characteristic with all these golfers. Like Patrick Cantlay, for example, is known for notoriously being one of the slowest golfers on course. So like, it's weird that like most sports have a shot clock or some kind of, like, golf, but you build fan bases that way. You build an identity that way. And I think that kind of plays into its charm. So like, if you ever try out this weekend, you're like, man, that guy hits a lot faster than that guy. Well, that's somewhat personal choice. That's somewhat part of their characteristic skill set and what they believe in. And I find all that kind of nuance fun too. So don't just think we're viewing this from a casual lens. But golf has seen a lot of changeover in DFS this week. We have seen the biggest price discrepancy we've ever seen in golf before. The top golfer, Scotty Scheffler, is 12 in the 12,000 range, which I think is historically high of any golf tournament of any golfer ever. And to compensate, they've now made their lowest 5,500. There's never been a sport that you can think of that's changed for a major event quite like this, right? Like pricing wise or adjustment like mid-season. Like, we've never seen that, right?
The lowering of the floor I've never really seen.
Yeah, and
like, I've seen them price guys up. Like, we've seen it in football all the time. Eventually a guy will get to 13, 14K. You see it all the time in like showdown NBA. Eventually a guy's going to be like 14K once he starts doing really well.
But the bottom's never dropped out. Like, the bottom.
No, exactly. The floor that's usually been there has been the floor. And the floor has always been 6K. So to drop it $500, like, it makes you really want to look at the guys in that range. But I still don't think it's necessary because I have seen $12,000 golfers before in tournaments. Although 12.5 is like it's still not something that happens a lot.
Yeah, I don't think you need to. I think that's the right word. You could, but if you do it, have a plan. Don't just go to the 5K range to play Scotty for the fact of like, oh, well, I don't want the rest of my lineup to suck, or I don't want my lineup to look, because what you really don't want in golf, Gov, is to have the same lineup as everyone else. Like you talked about the sport being a very communal sport, very, hey, I'm going to go out and play with my buddies. The one thing you don't want to do in golf is to share $1 million like 100,000 different ways with the same lineup.
Of course. So, it's usually not necessary. Like
exactly. But to your point, people are going to see a difference and be like, oh, there's a difference. Let me play the extremes of that. And like, I'm not even saying it's a wrong move. What I'm saying is, if you're going to do that, utilize it in a impactful way where you're not just doing it for the sake of it. Like, have a plan. Maybe play Scotty and Rory, Brooks and, one of the top, Patrick Cantlay. But don't just like say, well, I'm going to play a stars and scrub lineups that looks just like this, because I don't think that will be different enough. So, Gov, any takeaways? Like, we are not like the best, probably analytical, like gonna break it down, tell you where all the bunkers are, tell you the best shot. Like me and Gov, I don't think have been following the sport the longest.
I don't have that much knowledge on it. Yeah.
But that's also what I find very fun and energizing about it. It's like I'm not rippled in the history of golf. So like I can almost view it as a newborn baby. Like this is still sports. It's still fantasy. It's still gambling for me. But I can view it in a open lens kind of approach. And Gov can attest, I built some very unique, interesting lineups over the last couple of years because I think I'm not rippled in that history, like I mentioned before. Gov, who sticks out to you in terms of golfers that you like this week? Because we do have a lot of the live guys returning for the first time since the merger as well. So
and I do like certain live guys. I'll give you that. You have like I actually do like DeChambeau. I always like playing him. Yeah. I think the guy I was getting the most and then taking him out and then just getting builds where it's like play him still because that's the price range I'm in is like Denny McCarthy. He's probably the crazier one. I'm like at his price at like 7,300 or so, I think. It's either 73 or 74.
A lot of people like McCarthy because he's been really good this week, and his ownership is lower because we mentioned it before, but the historical golf fans, the people who've been following golf for the betterment of 5 years are like, yeah, I've seen Denny. I know what he is. But yet this year, Gov, he's been super consistent. Like maybe this is the only year he's ever been consistent, but he's been super consistent. Wyndham Clark is a lot the same way.
I really love Wyndham too. Yeah.
Yeah, Wyndham Clark didn't do anything for the first couple of times. He had his PGA card, and then this year he's been super solid. But one thing I noticed about golf is like we don't like to give up on players. Like on the opposite end of that, Justin Thomas, although he has the historical backing for many years, and obviously not only that, but like friendships and real bonds with like high-level players like Jordan Spieth is in a slump. And I think people just don't want to admit it because they're like, well, historically, he's been great. So I do think we're at like a pivotal point in golf, a pivotal point in DraftKings construction, and it's all merging this week in a weird mixology because you have the old thought process against the live guys returning, new pricing on DraftKings. I think the ownership is going to be really affected. Any other like takeaways that you have?
No, I think I actually I agree with everything you said there. Like I feel the same way this week.
I mean, it really does to me because it's like, and I believe they've only played at this specific spot internationally twice. So
It's been a few years since they've been here.
it's relatively new. Obviously, the concept of the four majors is not new, but some majors rotate. Like the Masters is always played at Augusta, but a lot of these other majors rotate in a very exclusive kind of
Yeah.
Super Bowl way, where it's like they have their favorites, they play their hits. We haven't played one here in a while, and we have like this insertion of new talent. That I mean, that's another thing too, Gov, is like we see a lot of like quote unquote rookies do very well in golf, especially this year. It's like one of the best times for it. That's why I'm excited about Live Golf coming back and the DP World Tour coming back and being available. I got to step away just for a moment, but talk about appointment viewing.
Woo. It's all good. There's going to be a lot of golfers here that I think are going to get overlooked, especially like the DP and the Live guys.
I hope so, because I'm not doing a bit here. You guys don't know this, Gov, but I've always been a fan of the Live guys. Like those are my favorite golfers.
Yeah, I don't think they did anything wrong doing what they did. They're still the same golfers they were a few years ago. They just went and got an extra paid bit of money, and now we'll see what happens next year now that they've merged and bought each other.
And for example, we've had that discussion multiple times. You can go back and watch some of the videos where we discussed it. We did a lot of off-season content right around this time last year where we mentioned that exactly. But like a guy like Bryson, just to show you the humanitarianness, he donated a lot, I think, to kidney research when he got it. So it's like, if we're going to pick and choose where we get our money or where our boss gets our money, at the end of the day, if we're being honest, a lot of us need to have paychecks to live, for multitudes of different reasons. And you shouldn't judge someone based on the amount of money they make anyways. Obviously, there are some moral obligations, whether you work at, a family restaurant and a adult films, studio as an actress, but those are personal choices, and we shouldn't judge someone based on only that characteristic. So just like, and this golf, Gov, it's like Adam Scott, for example. He's won majors before. But he's older. Is he eliminated? No, he's in the field. He has a chance to win. He's proven it. Is he likely to win, given his age, given his advancement? Probably not as much as maybe some of these younger guys who've never been here. And I think golf does a good job of building that kind of narrative as well. It's like they merge, like you would never see like Shaquille O'Neal come back for like a special NBA event, three times out of the year. He's never going to suit up for the Lakers 5 times this season, right?
No.
Golf gives you that opportunity. You only got to be good for one weekend in golf, and you can pay for so much.
So true.
I think that's an interesting strategy too. And I also think that golf lends itself in a unique way. It's like the best player in the world has been Scotty Scheffler this season, last season. He's built quite a portfolio. He has been one of the more consistent guys in the top 10. I don't think he's been outside the top 12 all season long. This entire
I think he had an 18th somewhere, but that was about it. You're right. Like he has been on a tear for like the last 18 months.
But it's weird because in golf, like the one thing that they're bad at. Like his putting has been pretty bad all season.
But this is a place where specifically at this golf course, it's a British golf course. As long as it's going to be wet, which it's supposed to rain over the weekend, it's not going to run fast, and it's going to be like easier putting.
Right. And I would equate that to like Steph Curry against like Shaquille O'Neal in free throws in basketball. It's like Will Shaquille ever shoot a 98% clip? No, he doesn't need to, though. The fact that you're on the foul line does help your team on some level. So, like, even if Scotty never turns around his putter this season, being on the green that many times is going to play a factor and has because he's still the best golfer and deserves that price, even though he has that fault. And I think golf does a really good job of highlighting their strengths and weaknesses better than most sports. Speaking of which, let's get into some of our favorite players or some players that I think we should highlight here.
I was about to say, you want to go price range, 10K, 9K, 8K?
Yeah, let's do it. You can lead the way so we keep going fast because I tend to
Okay.
go on.
So, like, if you're playing a 10K guy, ownership would say Rahm and Xander, and then Hovland would be or Rahm, Xander, and then I think Cam Smith are like the lowest owned guys. Of that, like I think John Rahm is just as good as Rory and Scotty. I really think like there's he was the best golfer before Scotty went on this 18-month tear he's on.
And
so
Rory,
like
Rory finally got the monkey off his back last week, and
yeah. So both of them being 600 and over 1,000 cheaper than Scotty, I'd have no problem playing like Rory or John Rahm. I'm playing some John Rahm myself.
I think John Rahm is the second best skill player in the field, so I think he should actually be ahead of Rory.
And I think Brooks is perfectly fine too at 10-4.
I know a lot of people are on Brooks, so if you are paying up at that range and not, I think the two highest in this range will be Brooks and Scotty. I think, Gov, you found the best high upside for the price and the ownership in John Rahm because Cam's going to be the cheapest, but for good reason. He hasn't been in form. He's been on live. He's self-admittedly not cared about this season as much as he should have. He's honestly said that.
Yeah.
So this is the major, but I mean, I don't think there's any other reason to play Cam Smith other than ownership. I'll say that.
I gotta run real quick. Let them know who you like in the 9K range.
Oh yeah, I can definitely play while you do what you got to do. The models are going to like Patrick Cantlay because this is one of the few times Patrick Cantlay has been in the 9K range. Obviously, fanfare. He's not the most likable golfer. He's kind of got that Alex Caruso kind of look to him. He looks very generic. But one of the best players, and like I said, he's never been, I believe, all season especially, but even through his career, he's never been bad and always been a 10K player. So the models, the projections are going to love Patrick Cantlay. And let's be honest, when you talk about winning upside, people that can actually win this tournament, Patrick Cantlay is one of them. I know a lot of people like the resurgence of Ricky Fowler. I'm not a fan of Ricky. I just think I'd rather play Victor Hovland and Patrick Cantlay way more than Ricky. Jordan Spieth, this is a legacy price because he has played very bad, very bad. You could argue him and Justin Thomas are friends in real life. You could argue that he's played just as bad as Justin in times this season. Like he hasn't been quite as consistently bad, but he's coming off of 2 missed cuts for the first time, I believe, in his career.
I was going to say, what do you like about Morikawa? You're playing him.
Oh, I love Morikawa because Morikawa was injured this year, took some time off, which I think dinged him up in perception and like fandom. But I think it was good. His back was bothering him on Gov, and instead of like soldiering on, he honestly just took a few weeks and was like, you know what, my back is bothering me, and was very open and transparent about it. I think some people dinged him about it, but I just think he's like the most complete golfer maybe on the course this week. Like he doesn't do anything great, but he is like the embodiment of not even consistency because he hasn't been consistent, but like his game doesn't have any weaknesses. And so, like, maybe he doesn't have any great strength, but he doesn't have any weaknesses.
Okay.
I like that about him.
I was about to say, I honestly like Ricky at the top range myself. If you're going in that in the high 9K range where we're at, I think Ricky's my favorite. But I could see Colin as a close number 2.
See, a lot of people like Ricky. I've never been a Ricky
I think
guy.
Cantlay's getting the ownership, but yeah.
Well, I've never been a Ricky guy, so I didn't want to speak on Ricky illly because I know he has talent. It's been a blind spot of mine. So
yeah.
Why don't you fill the people in why you like Ricky? He won in Detroit. I mean, you would think.
I was about to say he's been getting hot recently. He has always looked pretty solid in my mind. He's always been it's Ricky Fowler. I've as much as I've watched golf, I remember hearing his name. So like, if he's just starting to like round into form where he's going to look good, then he's got all the ability to be right at the top of this tournament.
And I will say he's had like a Tony Finau like year. Like Tony Finau came out of nowhere last year and was just like super consistent, and people were waiting for him to fall off. And last year he just never did.
Yeah, and he ended up winning. Like I could see like Ricky contending here and then maybe winning something here in like the 3M or something late in the year. I don't know.
I just think Ricky's better at those like less pressured events. I do think there is something further.
And that's not like he doesn't play well against the good competition. It's just that like he is a little better at those slightly lesser events. Yeah.
Let's be honest. I'm not the golf aficionado, and I'm gonna have my blind spots just like anybody else. That might be one of mine, but he's not on my betting card. He's not on my DK lineup. Quickly though, because I do think it's very a needed conversation. What do you think about Jordan Spieth? Because I mentioned that he has the legacy, he has the name, he has the marketability. You could argue he's probably, outside of maybe Scotty, the most recognizable golfer from non-golf fans there might be since Tiger. But he's coming off 2 missed cuts, still has a crazy high price tag, and hasn't shown good form at all.
Not only 2 missed cuts, but like 3. It's crazy because he's like coming off 2 missed cuts. 3 out of his last 4 were missed cuts. Technically, 5 out of his last 7.
Yeah.
But if you go back 8 tournaments, he has also in that span a second place and a T5 and a T30. So it's like he's either missed the cut or been in contention.
I will say though, this is
T4 at the Masters this year. So it's like he's either been good or just doesn't even contend.
Right. This is the type of bet where if you're going to bet on Jordan, you're going to bet him either with a top 5 finish or going to bet him to miss the cut.
Oh yeah, minimum top 20. Like you're going to bet him top 20, or you're just not. You're going to leave him off your card completely.
Right. That's good.
Yeah.
So I have to say, Matt Fitzpatrick is in this range. I think he is one of the most slept on guys this week, along with Justin Johnson, who I think might be the most talented player on LIV, but for some reason, just like Scotty, just doesn't care what people think about him, doesn't really seek out the limelight, but has been very consistent for many years and just goes over to LIV, but like very up and down, kind of like he's kind of like a combination of all the guys we've already spoken about, but he's only 9,200. He's basically almost out of the 9K range, which you give me a guy who I think has winning upside, and you're only going to force me to pay basically 9,000 for him. I'm on board.
Yeah, I could see that.
I would rather play him than Tommy, than Hatton, than Shane Lowry. I mean,
I could see playing Hatton, but everyone wants to play Hatton. So like Hatton's the sort of the chalk in the low 9K range. Him and maybe Fleetwood, but I would definitely play DJ over Fleetwood.
Right, and see, I just think I'd rather play M, who doesn't miss very many cuts, similar to Hatton, but hasn't put it together for almost $1,000 cheaper. So
yeah, I was about to say, so like in the 8K range, I love everyone at the top end of it too. Like Hideki, DeChambeau, Wyndham. I love
Yeah.
all three of those guys.
We talked about Wyndham. We talked about Tony. A guy that I really like that I got FOMO about leaving him off my card uh, is Hideki. I want to try to get Hideki in there. It's just I like Bryson DeChambeau so much better.
It's hard. Yeah, no. And I love Wyndham so much that it's hard for me to get good shares of the three of them.
Yeah, and I mean, I just wish we could keep talking about this for a while. And I guess that's one of the good things about golf is like we could come back with a Friday show and a Saturday show, and like there are different shootout contests. So make sure you choose the contest and the money amount that makes sense for you. Speaking of which, so instead of going player by player at this point, what are some of the guys that like in the 8K range or like in the high sevens that you think are priorities? For me, Taylor Gooch has been like if he was having this run in the PGA, he would be I think 9K. I want to say he's won like what was it? I had heard like 7 of the last 13 live events. Or maybe he had competed in a top 3 at like 7 of the last 12. That kind of like iconic streak, even if it isn't like the PGA, we're still talking about a lot of like PGA high quality major contenders. That is some kind of form that I want to get a hold of. He was never bad in the PGA to begin with, and he has a chip on his shoulder because I think he's one of the few players that like actually lost some popularity going over to live, where a lot of people like whether you love or hate them, they had this notoriety, they had this like shine to them. Taylor Gooch, I think, would actually been better off staying with the PGA, which is kind of unique in its own right. But he has been very good.
Yeah, I'll be quick. I would say my guy in the range is probably Tom Kim. I just think he actually has looked pretty okay. I think he barely missed the cut at the. I think he was only like a stroke or two off at the Rocket, and then like he comes out with the T6 last week at the Scottish, so like he's already been over there. He's adjusted to the time. Like I think he's my favorite. Although I like that lineup you have right there looks really good. Like I'd love to show you at the end, real quick, at the end, what my 3 max looks like. But now I think like let's switch over to the other part that we like the most. Because you and me are both trying to play the Rainmakers. So like now that we've gone through like the higher end guys.
Mm-hmm. And this could still be applicable to your DraftKings lineups.
Exactly. Like we can look up guys. Like let's look up. Like so let's see Rahm. He looked like the best value at the high K.
What do you think about Rahm though? Like skipping the last event, not like having a lot of like in performance kind of warm up. A lot of golfers they kind of have this baseball like thought process that they have to have this like superstition almost, where it's like we have to be informed. You have to be prepared. Are you worried about that at all with John Rahm?
Not really. Like he's been pretty solid. Like I'm not either. He's good enough where I'm not. It does scare me, and I think that's probably why he's getting the lower ownership and everything. But he's just so good. I'm willing to take the shot on him. But
yeah, and a guy that's played a lot but played bad is Justin Thomas on the opposite end. So just because you play a lot doesn't mean that your game's going to be informed.
Yeah, let's look at Scotty Scheffler. Like Rahm was going for 25. Scheffler's are going for over 30. So like you could get a $7 discount on that. But then what about a cheap guy for Rainmaker? So like let's see. We can't do the live guys. So who were some of the other guys we like? Like I like Tom Kim.
I like Ben Griffin. Tom Kim is a good one.
Tom Kim, he's only like $6. I think Hideki was only like $5. That's pretty good.
Hideki would be a good one. What's Colin? Because Colin took off some time, like I said, with the back injury, didn't look so good. I think he has a legit chance to win.
Only about $8, $9 maybe.
So, Gov, let me throw a scenario out at you. Let's say let's say there's two live guys that finish in the top 10. How do you think that influences rainmakers? And if you believe that, let's say I believe that, Brooks and DeChambeau are going to finish in the top 10. How does that influence your building of a rainmakers team for the highest upside?
Well, for the most part, because you have the ties in golf, it's not going to affect much. It's just going to be another golfer. Now, it does limit the pool of guys that will be in certain ranges. So, like, let's say Brooks ties for second and is a stroke back with, like, another dude. Mm-hmm. And then you get DeChambeau, who's actually tied for seventh with, like, 5 guys.
Mm-hmm.
And he's, like, 3 or 4 strokes back of first. So, like, let's say it's a scenario like that. Now there's 2 less spots in the top 10 that is actually a top 13 that is the people who get the most points fantasy-wise for all those extra win points you'll get for that spot. So, like, it means the lower guys that just make the cut and can make runs, even if they don't win, will be just as good as any of the other guys. So, like we're talking about the 2 live guys. So let's say that happens, and then a guy like Aim, like who you're playing, now he's one of those guys right behind that who's now tied for like 13th or 14th or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what if he's also sitting next to someone like Andrew Putnam or something like that, who was like $6K in the salary on DraftKings, and he's also going to be like 50 cents in the core. If you think he actually, like, this is the time where, like, the guys who, like, when you're betting that would have the higher odds at being top 20 that you honestly would want to bet, they probably have a cheap rainmaker that week. That would also be a decent investment.
And in full transparency, like, I have all of those bets as well. Like, I have Ben Griffin in my DK lineup. I have a bet on it, in the sports book. I invested in guys like Carl Young a couple of weeks ago. He's not in his field, but he was like one of the 50-cent players,
Agreed.
Dylan Wood, not to give you names.
Yeah, like right here.
Idea, not names.
Yeah, I have it sorted right now by, like, lowest price. So it's like, yeah, if you think one of these, like, 50-cent dollar guys has a decent shot that week of at least making the cut and having a solid run, especially in a field where there's guys who can be at the top who you cannot have in rainmakers, the live guys and some of the other lower golfers who are just playing from the other tours.
So why don't we do this, though, Go? Why don't you tell the people, because, like, we don't want to go on forever here. Why don't you tell some people, like, 3 guys that you feel like you have to get exposure to, whether that be DraftKings, rainmakers, like, these 3 guys you have to consider this week because they have so much upside to do what? Or to be this.
I can just bring up my lineups and show. I think Denny McCarthy has a good week. I think him at his price point, it's just like even if he becomes a little chalky, he's not going to be major chalk, and I think you can eat that. I love Wyndham. I'm kind of want to switch this one middle lineup up and get Wyndham in it, but, like, I love Wyndham. And then when it comes to a cheap guy, I like Putnam. Actually, I think he has a good solid shot.
Maybe just play Wyndham in rainmakers. Like, maybe this is the time to do that. But
he is in my main lineup, and again, I may switch him and John Ron at captain spot, but that would be the only switch I'd make to go with him, Tom, Hideki, and Xander.
And I could call up our friend Donnie, who knows nothing about golf, and he would tell you that almost every podcast I've ever done, I tell you, diversify your portfolio. Like, even if I love Bryson, so I have a bunch of Bryson bets, in different ranges, though. I have him a top 40. Then I have a to make the cut bet on him. And then I have him, in my DraftKings lineup. And so, but it's not all one bet. I'm not saying, I'm going to bet one and done on Bryson to win this tournament, and that's the only bet I have on him. No, you want to diversify your portfolio as much as possible.
Agreed.
I'll name this. I think this is one of the weeks where you can play anyone you want, including Scotty. So I'll give you some real cheap guys that I like. I like Ben Griffin this week. I like Southgate this week. I like Daniel Hilliard this week. Now, these are cheap guys. A fun narrative story, if you want to go narrative, Alex Fitzpatrick, the brother of Matt Fitzpatrick, is in the field. And last time they played together, they did very well in the, where they were partnered up and tiered up. So if you really want to go the bottom of the basement, Alex might be a guy to look at. But Southgate has been playing well. This guy named Ramsey is playing well. But here's the thing also, Gov, don't just go with one of these names because you hear about them on the tout sites. Know why you're doing it. Maybe it is, in Gov's case, to get Wyndham Clark. But at least have a full-on structure of why you're doing everything you're doing, whether that's playing Alex or playing all 8K guys. I don't believe in golf there's one way to do something, whether it be balance, stars, and scrubs, but have reasons for all your plays. Here's the guys that I would definitely say should be considerations in your lineup. Dustin Johnson, obviously for price and winning upside. Bryson, same thing. Colin, without injury, would I think be a 10K player easily, and maybe even 11K, and probably had some major win here and there. Who are the guys you're not playing? Quickly, just a couple of guys that price considered, just don't like them, gut feeling, whatever it may be, Gov. Any other?
Okay, so the first one is the chalky cheap guy McIntyre. I just don't think he has that good weekend again.
And he already had a big week.
Last week at the Scottish. So it's I just don't think that happens again.
But to that point, if you're going to do it, make sure it makes sense.
Yeah, because he's going to come in very chalky. Not that McIntyre's bad. He may still make the cut, but I just don't see him making this big run and being top 10.
Can I give you mine, because it's the same argument, just on the different polar opposite scale. Don't play Cameron Smith because you're he's good and no one's going to play him.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Yeah.
Don't use that logic. You could say he's Australian and I like Australian men, and that would be a way better argument than, I know he's good and he's going to be cheap or low owned. Don't fall in love with this low owned. I could build you the lowest owned lineup if you wanted me to. It's not going to win either. So at least have different reasons, not just ownership. It should factor in, but it shouldn't be the factor. Anyone else that you wouldn't play for whatever reason? Not even saying you don't like him, it's just you're not feeling it. Cam was my number one. Don't chase that he's going to be a low owned narrative. I never like that.
The guy I'm trying to stay away from, I had him in my lineup early and I've gotten off of him now, is Tony Finau. I just don't think he's having the run he had last year. I've got a bad feeling about him. Watch him come out in top 5, but something tells me he's not going to be that great this week.
And honestly, if he came out
at his price, he needs to be a pretty good golfer this weekend.
Exactly. And let's be honest, transparent for the people, Go. If he comes out in top 5, are you going to be mad? Are you going to lose your house?
No.
Of course.
I'll be upset I switched off him in my lineup, but it's going to be my initial thought was right, and then I tinkered.
And that's where golf is also interesting, because pay attention to the weather would be my determiner too. Is PM, AM stacks matter.
Yep. Is it windy? When's it raining? What's going on?
A guy can be a great play right now, and then just like we find out with these international weather reports, it could all change within 3 minutes. So we're going to try to get the people out of here in the next 3 minutes, Go. Thanks for joining me. This is great. I enjoy this. So hopefully this has a good mapping and does well as some bonus content for you guys. We might even have to do some live cut sweats at some point. Like I've really enjoyed golf. So any other like takeaways? Any other big bold predictions?
No, that's basically it for me. Like,
Are we,
I think Wyndham honestly can come up at the top. Like, it's hard to say he's going to win too, but
yeah,
like, I really think he can do very well here.
I think we
It wouldn't surprise me if just Scotty or Rory or Rahm just won it.
see. I was gonna say the opposite. My last advice, and like everyone's been doing it, so I guess we got to pick a winner too. My last advice is don't play Scotty because it's not even Scotty. It's DraftKings is enticing you with the new pricing. They're saying, hey, we're going to price him like a high price item so that way you value it as a top shelf item. But we're also going to drop the floor so then you have enough money. Look at our shiny toy. I don't want to play him almost purposely for that reason. I would definitely play John Rahm or Colin Morikawa, which I'm doing. Go. We have to almost do the one trope that everyone does, though. Who's the winner? If you had to bet a peanut butter and jelly sandwich on who the winner is with your classmates in school, who's it going to be?
John Rahm.
Yeah, my mom's going to be disappointed because I probably won't win this one and done. One and done are a terrible bet, but I'm going to probably lose my peanut butter and jelly sandwich on Bryson DeChambeau. I think it would be the most like controversial, like exciting moment for me. I've been a Bryson guy now, so it is biased. It would create good narrative, and I actually think he has like a legit chance to win because everyone thinks of beefy Bryson, but he actually like lost a bunch of weight, transformed the body again. He's really scientifically almost Tom Brady like where he'll like take this. I'm going to do something totally different than most people are doing and try to do it the longest, not even the best, because I do think all that longevity of Tom Brady ended up hurting him. And you could say the same thing about Bryson when he got really big and was trying to jack everything. Now he's kind of taking that more analytical approach. My guy is Bryson. But with that, I think we're done. I think it was a good show. Hopefully we gave you guys some content. Until next time, we'll bring Donnie back and we'll ramp up the NFL as usual. But thanks for joining me, guys. Have a good one.
Peace out, everyone.